Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik V Sakai. Ladies and gentlemen, I have good news for you. We have no injustices at all. All the fights were scored correctly, including the finishes. All of them were legit. But as you know, we have some honorable mentions. So we'll just start very quickly. The first honorable mention of the night was Woodson versus Zalal. Now, I will admit that this fight was very close. Specifically the second round. The second round was very close. You can kind of give it to either person. So it's an honorable mention, but it's not an honorable mention. But either way, I'll still read it out. My scorecard was 29-28 for Woodson. The judges, on the other hand, Ron McCarthy had it 29-28. Camijo had it 29-28 for Zalal. Ron McCarthy had it for. Camijo had it 29-28 for Woodson, and Tony Weeks had it 29-28 for Woodson. The dispute obviously seems to be that second round. And in the second round, it was very close on the feet. Very close on the feet. The only thing that really changed was the submission attempt by Woodson at the very end. And I'm not saying that Ron McCarthy... No, I'm not going to say that. But it's so close on the feet that honestly, you could give it to either person. But it's what I saw, and the reason why I gave it to Woodson was not just because it was close and then he got the sub attempt, but it looked as though he was ahead on strikes in that second round, which is why I gave it to Woodson. But it's so close because if you look at it again, or if you watch it again, in that second round, you could say Zalal was ahead on strikes in that round. So it's kind of tough, but it is what it is. It's a split D, and it's an honorable mention, but it's not because that second round is so close. And if you look at the first round, they all scored it the same. If you look at the third round, they all scored it the same. So it's that second round that's the disputable one. Either way, it's an honorable mention, but I'm not ragging anyone for it. Next honorable mention is a fight that ended in a no contest due to an accidental eye poke by Jones. Was Patrick versus Jones. The honorable mention goes to all three judges. Saul D'Amato, Camijo, and Tony Weeks. They gave it a 10-8. I gave it a 10-9, and my reasoning for the 10-9 is in that first round. Okay, in that first round, it was kind of, feeling each other out a little bit and throwing a few shots. Now, Jones had some bigger shots, right? They were both striking up until Jones got it to the ground and got really big ground and pound. Now, what this round reminds me of is, I believe, the Jacoby versus Kubilaba fight, where a judge gave a 10-8 because of that elbow action on the side of the fence, right? Where it was really big. I wouldn't call it ground and pound because he was up against the fence, but there were really big elbows on the fence, and it gave people the idea that was a 10-8. To me, it wasn't a 10-8. This action happened at the very end of the round. If this had happened maybe 3 minutes into the round, or the last 3 minutes of the round, maybe a 10-8, most likely. But again, it just wasn't enough to give a 10-8. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not going to, I'll say it. I could be wrong. This could be the first time. This could be the very first time that I scored a card. No. I'm pretty sure I've scored some wrong. But I personally wouldn't have given it a 10-8. I gave it a 10-9. All three judges gave it a 10-8. But the honorable mention goes to all three of those judges, though. Then we have another honorable mention. This one kind of missed me a little bit. This was Amirkhani versus Kirk. I had it 29-28 to Kirk. All right. And Mike Bill had it 29-28. Dave Hagen had it 30-27. And Rick Winter had it 29-28. All going to Kirk. Now, obviously, the honorable mention goes to Dave Hagen. He gave Kirk a 10-9 in the first round. And what confuses me about this is the first round, I think Dave Hagen has this confused with one of the other rounds, right? Because in the first round, in those last two rounds, Amirkhani is trying to get a takedown, or he gets takedowns, actually. The reason why he loses this fight is because there was no ground and pound. See, in the last two rounds, all right, so in the second round, it's a close round on the feet. Amirkhani gets a takedown, but he gives no ground and pound, right? Hence why Kirk gets the second round. In the third round, Amirkhani gets two takedowns. He gets two takedowns, but this one's a little different because he gets two takedowns, but Amirkhani gets two takedowns, but Kirk is the only active person. He's active from the bottom. And then later in that round, he switches positions and delivers ground and pound. Now, it's not a lot of ground and pound. It's not like Patrick versus Jones ground and pound, but it's enough pound and ground to show, hey, you won the fight or you won the round. The reason why Kirk loses the first round is because there's a little bit of striking before Amirkhani gets the two takedowns. There's a little bit of striking, and both of them land pretty nice shots, but Amirkhani gets two takedowns. And there wasn't any, like, ground and pound from Kirk. So when Amirkhani got those two takedowns, that's enough to win him that round. Kirk did not do enough in that first round to win that round, but in the second and the third, he did enough. The honorable mention goes to Dave Hagen for giving a 10-9 in that very first round. The next honorable mention is for Boser versus Latifi. Now, this fight was a split decision. This is a little confusing again. I'm confused by some of these scorecards, man, but mine was 29-28. And Mike Bell had it 29-28 Latifi. I also had it 29-28 Latifi. Kamijo has it 29-28 Latifi. And then Tony Weeks, again, has it. This is he gets two honorable mentions here, actually. Tony Weeks has it 29-27. So let's start off with the first problem. He gives a 10-9 to Boser in the first. Now, here's the weird part, right? Because in the first round, Boser outstrikes Latifi, barely though, it's barely. But Latifi gets a takedown and controls him for 2+ minutes. This is obviously Latifi's round. Latifi wins the first round. Okay, it's 2+ minutes of control time on the ground, and Boser barely outstrikes Latifi. It's not even a debate. This is Latifi's round. Okay, so that's the first problem off the top. Second problem is he gives a 10-8 to Boser. Now, Boser outstrikes him clearly in the second round, right? But it's just a regular on-the-feet striking battle. There's no reason to give a 10-8 here. This isn't like, this isn't Holloway versus Cater 10-8. right? Because you rarely see those. You rarely see the 10-8s on the feet, right? A lot of 10-8s come from, ground stuff. But Boser didn't go crazy enough to warrant a 10-8. That's just bad. That's actually bad judging. That's really bad judging. So honorable mention for this goes to Tony Weeks for a terrible scorecard. A very bad scorecard. Next honorable mention is Todorovic versus Rodrigues. I had it 30-27 Rodrigues. Ron McCarthy had it 29-28 Rodrigues. Rick Winter had it 30-27. Tony Weeks had it 30-27, so that's good. But Ron McCarthy having 29-28 is confusing, and it all falls down to the third round, where it's getting close. I won't lie to you. It was getting close in that third round. The third round was a little close, but it was so close. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. I'm sorry. Right. Okay. So basically, in the first round, Rodrigues outstrikes him. He lands the more shots than Todorovic. The same happens in the third round. It's the exact same round. The only difference is Todorovic is much more active. Both of their outputs are up, but Rodrigues lands the more shots. I can see how he gives it to him, right? Because Todorovic's output is now to the moon, but Rodrigues matches his output and lands more than he does. So I think that's a bad one. So the honorable mention goes to Ron McCarthy for that third round scored. Other than that, I believe every other scorecard was perfect. Overall, the fights were great. The fights were really nice. I was really surprised that the judges didn't mess up the Ponzinibbio versus Baez one, because in that third round, well, it was obvious. It was obvious they were going to give that to Ponzinibbio, but at first it was looking. The round started very Baez-y, right? He looked like he was winning for that 30-second mark, and then it was off the rails for him. But I'm glad they kept that scorecard intact. And overall, good job by the judges. Thank you for listening, and God bless.